Hello, West Ham Network. It's Holly. I hope you're all having an amazing day. Now, today we're going to be chatting about a new PSR loophole which has been revealed, which could benefit clubs massively. It already looks like some clubs are doing a little bit of a sneaky one, including many of our rivals. But the question is, could West Ham make the most of this, and how is it actually going to affect us? So, to give you a little bit of an insight, on Saturday we saw Everton, Villa, Chelsea, and Newcastle all progressive deals that included lesser known academy players, and they were all being sold for pretty large price tags. So Tim Uregbunam and Lewis Dobbin, they were both exchanged in separate deals between Everton and Villa for a reported £9 million each, both of which seemed to be pretty generous fees for the amount of experience that these players had. Then it was reported that Villa would be selling Amari Kellerman to Chelsea for a reported £19 million, with Chelsea's homegrown talent Ian Maatson heading back the other way to Villa for £37.5 million. But what do these have in common, I suppose, these deals, and how exactly is this a loophole? Well, interestingly, and I'm sure it won't surprise too many of you, all four of those clubs have concerns over their Premier League profit and sustainability, PSR position, and the deadline for PSR accounting is the 30th of June, so we've got 4 more days. Now, Everton had 2 separate point deductions for breaching the rules, as well as having losses of 90 million in their last financial results, announcing that they're going to have to sell players this summer. Villa had a loss of 119 million last season and have had to put players like Douglas Luiz up for sale, despite qualifying for the Champions League when they're going to be wanting to strengthen their position. Chelsea have said that they are pretty confident they're going to comply with the rules, but they had a pre-tax loss of 90 million. In their most recent accounts, with it being reported that they're going to need to sell players to avoid getting into trouble. They've also sold players, bought players on like multi-year deals, which could come back to bite them, but we'll talk about that another day. And Newcastle chose not to sign anybody in January because they were worried that they were at risk of breaching PSR, admitting that they might also have to sell a top player to avoid punishment. So all 4 of those clubs are going to be very keen to do whatever they can to make the finances look a little bit more flattering than they do at the moment. So this is where it gets really interesting, because if you usually sell a player, the money that you make, the profit that is included in your accounts, is reduced by the amount you originally spent. So if you buy a player for £50 million and within 3 years you sell them for 70 million, the profit is recorded as 20 million. And then this goes to those 3 years of accounts that they look at for PSR. However, with homegrown academy players, you've not paid anything for them. So the price tag is classed as pure profit. So it's not got any deductions and it's not split over multiple years or anything like that. Instead, it is recorded as profit in one big chunk. So it's a lot more flattering. So this means that if you're able to sell one of your homegrown talents for £9 million, that full amount of £9 million goes directly into this year's profits. And it's not split between different years, everything's profit. And going the other way, if you're buying a player, whether they're an academy player or not, as always, the cost is split over the number of years on the contract and in line with the payment structure. So to put this into perspective, the deal between Everton and Villa, they each paid £9 million for the academy player that they bought. So this means that their losses are going to be reduced by £9 million for each of the players that they've sold. They've got £9 million profit for selling their players each. Then, with the player that they've bought, this looks a lot more flattering because the purchase of the player is split over the number of years in the deal. So let's say they've bought each other's players in a 3-year deal. That means it's just £3 million a year for each of the players. So essentially, the sale from each side means they have spent £3 million this year on a player and they have gained £9 million. Reducing their debt by £6 million by simply swapping homegrown talent, if you want to look at it that way, with the other team. And this is obviously a massive way to make it look a lot more flattering. And you pay £3 million this year, next year, and the year after. But if you're actually trying to impact your last 3 years, having that boost of £6 million right now is absolutely massive. And this loophole, it shows an area of, I guess, the league PSR system, which can definitely be used to limit losses. But it isn't just doing deals both ways that can be used to benefit sides, but inflating the price tags of the players that you're doing this with. And we'll go into this in a minute. It's very difficult to prove whether someone's doing this or not, but it looks as though it's happening. So Kellyman looks really talented. He's an England under-20 international. Looks like he's got a decent future ahead of him. But when Villa paid £600,000 for him 2 years ago, and he is currently valued on transfer market at €1 million, which is the equivalent of £844,515, does it look suspicious that Chelsea are now valuing this pretty much unproven player at £19 million, all of which will be registered as pure profit on Villa's accounts this year? I will leave that one with you. So don't get me wrong. I know that players like Cole Palmer, Anthony Gordon, they've been sold for large sums of money, and then they've proven themselves and proven that they're worth that. But it's the equivalent of us selling Callum Marshall to Brighton for 20 million, and them just so happening to also buy us just so happening to buy an academy player of theirs for 20 million. It's all very expensive and incredibly convenient. And now this loophole's been exposed. It's something that a lot more clubs could take advantage of. And for West Ham, this is one that's difficult because it's clubs that we obviously want to be competing with that have already managed to sneak in here. And yet, essentially, they're managing to find a way to sneak around the rules, which keeps happening at the moment with the PSR stuff. Premier League are said now to be monitoring things, but those that have already made deals, I'm sure there's nothing they can do to make them take it back. And the difficulty we're going to face with this is that obviously it's the same as VAR. You put in a structure or whatever to help. People find ways around it. People find problems with it. There are loopholes and issues, and then you have to keep almost adding more and more rules. But it's not until someone breaches this or finds a little sneaky way around it that you realise there's a problem. Because the biggest issue you've got is that there is absolutely no system in place, and I don't even know how you put one in place, to limit what a club values a player at, because value is all about whatever the club is willing to pay. So it becomes really, really difficult to police. You look at Declan Rice, people were saying that he wasn't worth what we were selling him for, but to us, we needed him at the time, and therefore they needed him. That was the price tag, like take him or leave him. So it's really, really difficult. You can't necessarily push a price on a player because, like I said, you look at Cole Palmer. Some players accelerate massively in value and in like what they're able to do. So you can't necessarily say this player was bought for £600,000 last year. You cannot sell him for more than £1 million because he might actually be worth 40 million. So yeah, there's just no way for us to monitor this basically. But the biggest downside of this, and I hope that West Ham don't mess around with this because this would make me really sad, is that academy players are being used like pawns in a game to benefit clubs' PSR, and they're being sent to clubs which have they don't care about them. They have none of their best interests at heart. They are simply basically using them to make their accounts look slightly better. And of course, they don't have any plans for their future. They're not going to be developing them with the goal of getting them into first team football. And it's a really sad state of affairs because the whole point of an academy and the whole point of the academy system is to nurture young talent and produce players that are passionate about the club and have a chance of playing at the top level. So to see relatively talented youngsters just be pushed around simply because clubs want to make their accounts look better is not good. So I hope that West Ham don't go down this route. So there we have it, a loophole which has emerged with PSR regulations. Could it be time to rethink these regulations to make sure all bases are covered better? The goal is obviously to stop the big clubs just coming in with owners' money and absolutely splashing the cash and buying everybody up, which I think still can be done. It's just difficult because what we're seeing, like we had it before with Chelsea players signing on these extra long contracts, they found a way to kind of get around that financial difficulty that they had by, instead of splitting a deal over 3 years, it's splitting it over 5 years, 7 years. Obviously, they've limited that now at 5 years, but this is the problem. You've got to then come in with another policy that then stops this, but it's not until somebody finds a way around it that you realise there's a little bit of an issue. And if these clubs are clever, then you should have people trying to find these loopholes so that you can exploit them before they become a known thing. And Chelsea are definitely right at the front of that. So let us know how you feel about it in the comments. Are you annoyed that others have been using this, or do you wish that West Ham managed to be one of the teams using this sneaky tactic to, I guess, make our accounts look more flattering? For me, I don't want us to use this. I think it goes against everything that an academy is about, because you're literally bringing talent through the ranks and then you're going, we don't care about you, we're just going to push you off to somewhere where your future is completely unknown, to a club that has zero plans for you most likely, simply to make us look a little bit more rich on paper over the next 3 years. So naughty in my opinion. But that's all from me for now. Drop us a comment. Let us know what you think. Give this video a thumbs up if you've enjoyed it. If you're new around here, make sure you subscribe. If you fancy treating yourself, why not get yourself West Ham Network membership? We've got giveaways. We've got exclusive content. There's a lot that you won't want to be missing out on. But that is all from me for now. Join me at 5 p.m. I'm going to be running through your Hammers headlines. And as always, have an amazing day. And until next time, come on, you Irons.